Hey everybody, welcome to the video. Today we're going to be making this shader in Blender. If you're just interested in the node tree, you can find it on my Patreon for free. Link is in the description. But if not, let's get to it. Alright, here we go. Let's press A, delete everything, Shift A, grab a new mesh. We're going to grab a cylinder. With our cylinder, we're going to Control B, bevel the top. We're going to grab the bottom vertices. We're going to pull them down a little bit with G, Z, and then we're going to press Control B, bevel the bottom as well. Now we're going to take our object. We're going to Shift D, make a duplicate. We're going to right click, G, Y. Now we have two cylinders. We're going to grab both of them. We're going to Shift click Auto Shade Smooth. And with the first one here, we're going to click on it. We're going to rename it to Controller. With the second one, we're going to grab it, and we are going to rename this to be, let's say, Slime Tube. All right, now with our object selected, go to Viewport Shading, Cycles, GPU Compute, select New. Let's rename this to Suzy Slime. And let's select the pinned button so that no matter which object we select, we're always going to be seeing our shader for this object, for our Suzy Juice cylinder. So let's grab our principal BSDF. We are going to grab Shift A, color ramp, plug this into the base color and the emission color, and then make sure you set your strength to 1. We are going to grab a mix color, put that there. Now we're going to duplicate this color ramp, Shift D, color into the A, and we're going to grab a gradient texture. Now we're going to press Control T to bring up a mapping node. And we're going to go object into the vector. And then our object that we're going to determine the rotation of the gradient is going to be the controller. Now at this point, let's preview from our principal BSDF. As you can see from the top, the gradient is going this direction, so we can push these together to make it more of a contrasty gradient. And we're going to go to this controller, our controller object. We're going to rotate that on the Y 90 degrees. So now, as this goes up and down, everything is changing. The gradient, the mapping coordinates of the texture on this object are being controlled by our controller cylinder via the texture coordinates from this node. So let's grab this one. We're going to push these together. This color ramp is going to drive the color in this area. So we're going to do white on the top, green on the bottom. Okay, that looks good. And this color ramp over here is going to control exactly where they are. Now we need to grab a Shift A noise texture. We're going to do Control T. We're going to leave this texture mapping node as it is, but we're going to grab another color ramp. And we're going to go factor into the factor, color into B. Slide these over. And as you can see now, we've added kind of the noise texture here. So let's make sure that these are in the right spots. See, switch up the factor here. Okay. So we're going to do, yes, a factor of 0.7. Let's grab our noise texture. We're going to do 4.1 for the scale. Detail, we're going to do 1.9. Roughness, we're going to do 0.85. The lacinarity, we're going to do 2.4. Distortion, we're going to do 5.1. Okay. So I made a slight mistake. This color ramp right after the principal BSDF, we're going to change that to black. There we go. Let's pull these over. All right. That looks good. All right. Now we can control the detail with this other color ramp, the one that's coming out of the noise texture. But I think that looks pretty good to start. Now we're going to grab Shift-A, Mix Shader, and then we're going to immediately duplicate that, Shift-D, plug that back in. Now we're going to go Shift-A, Color Ramp. We're going to duplicate this. We're going to grab another gradient texture, plug those all in, and then Control-T, and we're going to switch the object to the vector, object to the controller. With this other color ramp, we're going to grab a Shift-A, Voronoi texture, plug those in, and then we're going to go Control-T, same deal, object into the vector, object as the controller. From here, we're going to plug this bottom one into the shader and this top one into the factor. So let's preview these, holding Control, Shift, click. That's what this block of nodes is doing. When I hit Control Shift, I'm previewing everything before here. So if I go back, Control Shift click, Mix Shader, I see both the top section of this Mix Shader and the bottom section. So let's preview this again. Let's see if we can dial these in. So on this bottom one, I'm going to pull these a little closer together, maybe change this color to something like that. Up here, let's pull these closer together. Okay. Grab this one, maybe we'll go gray. All right. So now we need to line the two up together. So switch between the factor here. So they're almost lined up, but we can control where exactly the two shaders line up via this color ramp as well as this color ramp, because they're controlling where exactly the gradient is being projected on the object. So if you have one that is off, like this one's way above the bottom shader, you can dial these in with the color ramps that are connected to the gradient texture. Let's grab this Voronoi texture. We're going to scale 2.4. Detail, we're going to do 0. Roughness, we're going to do 1. The lacinarity, we're going to do 11.6. Random, we're going to keep it at 1. Maybe we'll switch up the color of this bottom one a little bit. Maybe something a little darker. All right, now with the top and bottom done, we are going to move on. There's only 2 more parts left to do. So we're going to grab a Mix Shader, plug that into there. We're going to duplicate this principal BSDF, plug that into the bottom. Now we're going to go grab a color ramp and a gradient texture again. We're going to plug the color into the base and that, just like that. And then we're going to grab our gradient texture, color into the factor, Control T, switch the object to the vector, grab our controller again, and here we are going to flip these. So the white's on the bottom, we're going to make this a third type of green, and then we're just going to make sure that these line up with the other textures. All right, and then before we dial everything in, we're going to grab an add shader. And there's probably a better way to do this, but we're going to grab another principal BSDF. We're going to drop this into there, and we're going to go alpha 0. So now you can see inside of our shader. So there are a couple limitations to this shader. Like obviously you can see if we go up here, you can just see through the whole thing. That's a pretty easy fix. You just grab this object, tab into edit mode, Control R, add an edge loop, Shift D, click off of that. We're going to go out of here. Oops. P, separate by selection. We're going to go tab out of edit mode. We're going to hide that. Grab this, go back into edit mode, press F, fill that in, and then hit Alt H to bring everything back. And then we just need to line this. We'll change its name to top. And then it just needs to be lined up with the shader where there's no texture information. So if you bring that down, you can give yourself, the top of the texture, and then you can just hit shift click this, Control P parent object, so that when you bring it down, you can see that there is, the top of the texture covers whatever object's in there, if there is an object in there. So that's one solution to that. Now we're going to animate this. First, you can select your controller, put it in the position that you want it to. Press I location. Make sure you're on frame 1. Then you go frame 100, GZ, bring it down. I location, grab both of these, T, linear. Now we're going to move the textures themselves. So if you go to the mapping node, follow the chain back, this mapping node that's connected to this noise texture, we are going to move it on the Z so that you get some, liquid flowing. So if we press I, and if we click the mapping node, we can see the point show up. Now we're going to go to the 100 frame, and we're going to go, down a little bit, press I again to add another one of those, and then you can see it kind of swirls as it's moving down. And then the other thing we can do is grab the Voronoi texture, and we're going to rotate this. So grab this mapping one, go back to frame 1, maybe we'll move it on the Y location, 100 frames, rotate it, I. Same deal with these, press T, linear, as they're selected. All right, so maybe that's a little fast. We'll bring that out a little further. All right, that's still probably a little fast. Let's press I again. Maybe we'll lower this some, just a tiny bit. Press I to redo the keyframe. All right, that looks pretty good. And there you have it, a bioluminescent slime Suzy juice kind of shader. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and we'll see you in the next one.